This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, I refer to myself as a guide rather than host, as I too am traveling, supporting others, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy C. Wright. Joining me today on my journey is Lotty Ackerman Mayer. Now, she is a mentor, trainer, guide for healers and clients who are seeking deep and transformative shifts through a blend of modern science and ancient wisdom. Now, she is an intuitive healer, a psychotherapist, and an Azui Holy Fire 3 Reiki Master and Holy Fire Corona Reiki Master, trained in somatic healing approaches and a number of other modalities for restoration after trauma, including somatic experiences and interpersonal neurobiology. Additionally, she holds a master's in clinical social work and a PhD in theoretical physics, with expertise in working with highly sensitive or intuitive individuals. She has provided integrative trauma healing services for over a decade in organizations and private practice to support individual, ancestral, and collective healing. Now, using cutting-edge perspectives and traditional wisdom teaching, Lottie is honored to support individuals who want to shift from old patterns and find a more authentic way to be in the world and to connect to their innate wisdom and find more ease in their body and life. Lottie, welcome to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you so much, Tracy. It's an honor to be together, and hello to all the listeners of Ready, Set, Reiki. Yeah, it's wonderful to be in community.
So let's begin our journey together. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Let's see. So I am originally from Venezuela, and my native language is Spanish. So that's probably the accent you all hear. And I'm currently live in the U.S. and at the moment in Austin, Texas, and I have been here for a while. What to share about myself? So, growing up as a little kid, I was an empath and still am, and had a pretty strong intuition. I didn't know those words. I didn't know what that meant, right? But, I navigated life in those ways. And I am still, a curious person. And by life, I was actually very good at science. And I was fascinated by energy. Like I remember when I was a little kid, I read in a book that like atoms, like if you they have electrons, and if you give enough energy to the electrons, they shift energy levels, and then when they go down, they emit light. And I was fascinated by this. And as a kid, I remember I was reading the different salts. We'll do this, or we'll go and heat the salts and see all this light. It was pretty fun. But anyways, and so I was fascinated by all of that, and I was fascinated by space and time. And I was also fascinated by biology, by ourselves. As a kid, as a teenager at the point, I was fascinated by when I read about epigenetics, how things can pass through generations, also in our cells and our genes, even though they have the same codes, but certain things shift. So I was fascinated by all of that. And I went on to study science. And I studied physics. And I was very interested about it. And I was very fortunate to get a scholarship, and I was able to study in a Center for Theoretical Physics in Italy. And then I came to the US for a PhD in physics, which was both a life-changing and a very stressful opportunity. So, but anyways, and I finished that, and I actually came to Austin as a researcher for a few years in the university between the physics and the astronomy department. And how, sometimes it's one shares it feels like a line, like if I'm sharing it like a line, but life is not a line. It has all these complexities and things. So it's just interesting to share. And then I share, then I stopped doing physics, and then I did social work. It just sounds like what happened, right? But this will be a full hour of explaining this inner shift. But the summary might be that even since a kid, I was also very, in my heart, very caring about myself and our people and our community and our planet. And through the years, I had volunteered in many organizations and communities, and that's its own story in itself. So at some point, I was not passionate about the questions about physics I was researching. What I was researching was very abstract and beautiful. It was the origin of the universe and the energy composition of a universe. So it was beautiful. But at some point, those questions were not the ones that were motivating my life, even though they were beautiful. And honestly, being a researcher in academia is actually very stressful. So I was not that motivating, and it was actually very stressful. And I'm like, I'm done. And so I wanted to support others and our communities and our planet. And so it was. I went back to school and I studied social work, master in social work, and to support our communities and each other and our planet. And in doing that, I ended up specializing and doing internships in supporting survivors of trauma. And that's its own story in itself. But maybe as part of it, right? When I was learning all these different modalities and how to support each other, I have had, my own experience, how those traumatic experiences feel. And to me, those experiences were some of them, of how those traumatic experiences feel, it was very body-based. And all that was learning was very like thought-based, and I'm like, this is not enough. And so I was pulled into studying something called somatic experiencing, which has to do with embodiment and how to connect with the wisdom and the language of the body, to connect with those patterns that tend to be stuck, either the fight, flight, freeze type of patterns, and how to help release them, right? It was interesting because I was pulled to that modality before I never met any somatic experiencing practitioner, before I have ever had a somatic experiencing session, but I knew how to do that, and I did. And that is hard to explain. That training is not like a conceptual thing. It's an experience. It's a multi-year and multi-layered experience. And so it was many years, and a number of years also, not just supporting others, but having my own personal sessions, having consultations. So it was a multi-year experience, and it was powerful and beautiful. And it helped me understand my system better and track my own system better, and how to energetically track other people's systems as well. Not all the time, but whenever somebody wants support, in sessions. So it was a beautiful experience, right? And I have also then been trying to understand, like I spent a number of years understanding our universe, our external universe. And then with this shift, I spent a lot of time understanding both my own and each other as a human, as communities, inner universes. And so then I learned other modalities that include the body, but also include our heart and our inner worlds, right? And that then I started working as a psychotherapist, mostly supporting cerebral trauma or highly sensitive folks. And that was beautiful. And then other unfolding happened. that led me towards more energy healing practices and Reiki, which open other possibilities. But I speak with those probably in a little bit. So I let you, maybe, however, we pose this question now, and I invite you to say the second one. Yes.
So it seems that, the universe was definitely preparing you on your journey for that, which brings us to our next question.
Yes.
So when did the Reiki come into your life? Did Reiki find you, or did you find Reiki?
Oh, Reiki found me. Yeah. That was also its own journey. I was, how to make this summary, through my life, as a, I was always, I was always intuitive, and then but then sometimes I would have this awareness, these knowings, right? Um, Maybe a bit psychic, but anyways, and they will come sporadically, right? And I would always say, "Oh, how interesting! How strange! Interesting information, right?" And then I will keep going with my life, right? And then some other time will come. I'm like, "How interesting!" And I will just keep going with my life. And then there was a period of my life, a few years back, where kind of with some support and to my surprise, my energy system kind of more aligned, and through actually some sound and energy healing. But that was not the point. I was experiencing something, and to my surprise, um, this kind of awarenesses came much more consecutive, right? Faster, like with less gaps. And some of them were surprising to me. And I'm like, what is all of this? Right? I suppose what is people would call a spiritual awakening kind of thing, right? But what is all of this, right? And I was actually fortunate that somebody I was connecting with um, was honest and caring. And she also shared with me her journey. Because if not, I probably would have, again, pushed all these things to the side and continue with my life, right? But at some point, I'm like, okay, this is all very strange and too many coincidences. What is going on here, right? And some things were surprising, some things I had never heard about and then shared, and this is a thing. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I don't know. But anyways, it's a long story in itself. And during that period of time, which was kind of compressed very fast, I was pointing towards Reiki. I had never had a Reiki session before in my life either. I had never, but I saw that the website of the person I was going to, somebody pointed me towards, and I got all these goosebumps, and I'm like, I need to go to this class, right? And it was interesting because I tend to be cautious. And through life, I have been like, always wanted to connect with energy and energy healing. But part of me was afraid. Part of me was like, what if something goes wrong and I don't understand what is going on? What then, I was never afraid that it was not going to work or it will be good. That's fine. That's great. I'm like, what is not good, right? Like, what if something bad happens, right? Anyways, so I was a bit afraid of it. And I remember when I signed up for the class, right a few days before I read, I'm like, I was reading what was in the class and I actually got afraid, but I'm like, no, put your left brain and you need to do this. Anyways, I went to this class with zero expectations. I have never had a Reiki session before. I didn't know what to expect, but I'm like, I need to be here. So, and after the class, it was a beautiful experience. And also to my surprise, other things open up. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then um, it allowed, the energy is beautiful and powerful, but also through that process, kind of my perceptions expanded. And right after that class and what was going before, then I was able to perceive more clearly that some of those patterns that people were coming to me for support, as well as my own support, they had energetic imprints. Um, and let's just say things from non-ordinary reality. And I'm like, what is going on? So after being freaked out a little bit, I was very fortunate to connect with good mentors and support, but that allowed me to, then I felt the calling that the way, or the knowing that the way I was practicing before was not, even though it is beautiful. It was not complete enough. It needed this extra piece of both Reiki and other energy healing practices that also bring that support. And one thing that I did learn through this process, to my surprise, is that there is more support than I could have guessed. Not just in each other and in community, that for sure, but also even from the energetic realms and from non-ordinary reality realms, there is also actually a lot of support. And that was surprising, and I'm very grateful. But the answer to your question is that no, it took me by surprise, and I went to the class without knowing what it was, but I knew I had to be there, and I was very clueless in the class. And I'm like, okay. So anyways, that's the summary, Tracy.
Very good. So you have studied Azui Holy Fire 3. You're a Reiki Master, Corona Reiki. You've been trained in shamanic healing. As you're out navigating into this wonderful world of energetic healing, what is a common misconception that you're finding about Reiki?
Well, it depends on with who I speak. Some people come to Reiki knowing what it is, and then it just flows, or they're open to it. But some people come. My invitation is to have a direct experience, and then make up your mind and heart. But a misconception that sometimes people have is that because it's a bit magical, that all problems are going to disappear in a second, right? Yes. But sometimes it happens, but rarely, right? And so there is this yes, the effects are not necessarily instant. I mean, we can feel better after a session, though. But sometimes life changes, takes its time, and takes the collaboration of the human to make those changes also happen in one's life. So the energetic helps. And then as a human, one also have choices that one can make to align with those shifts. So yes. And sometimes the energetic takes a little bit to land in the physical form to make those shifts. So maybe that's, yeah.
Oh, very good.
Cool.
So you help individuals shift their old patterns to find an authentic way for them to be in the world, help them connect with their wisdom, help them through their challenges and struggles. But what has been the biggest challenge or struggle that you have faced in your own healing journey?
Thank you for asking, Tracy. Yes, I am a human, for sure. And so, yes, I have challenges. One of them, to summarize, I have had to navigate various type of systems, I'm not from the US and other things, right? And sometimes it brings stress. And at some point, the stress got me, and I got diagnosed with a chronic illness, which was hard and took a toll on my body, and it was scary at times. And I'm very grateful for medical care, and I'm also very grateful for also overwork. The stress was system and overwork. Like to go to school, I had to work a lot, and anyways, it was an overwork and stress situation that crashed my system, crashed my body, and I got diagnosed with this chronic illness. But anyways, and so in conjunction with medical care, that I'm very grateful, those energy healing modalities have also been helpful, like Reiki, as well as more body work type of modalities like craniosacral work or somatic experiences. Those have been helpful for my life. Yes, that might be a summary.
Very good. So what do you wish your younger self knew about energy work and even your work with somatics? What do you wish you knew?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I have a lot of compassion for my younger self, and it's all a journey, right? And so it happens in its own time. So what I wish my younger self would know is that there is community of like-minded and like-hearted folks, right? Sometimes in the same place one lives, sometimes in other places, or sometimes online. So there is, a number of us who can be in community and support each other, right? And so there is actually support in the human realm in our communities, right? And there is also support in the energetic pieces as well. So, yes.
Very good. So when it is time for you to get your energetic tune-up, what are some qualities that you look for in a Reiki practitioner or an energy healer?
Yes, thank you for asking. Actually, I'm very picky because I'm a very sensitive being. So
Yes.
I'm very discerning with whom I get support, and I'm very grateful for the support. So some things is that like the person needs to be ethical. Like I need to know, and I know that very quickly usually, I need to know that they are clear in their communication, they're caring and clear, they're respectful, they would understand my pace, they would not go with their agenda to see what they think I need. They would invite me and respect and honor my voice, my choices, my pace. And it's kind of like a collaboration.
Mm.
So it needs to be authentic, grounded, respectful, caring, compassionate. So ethical. Yes.
Very
Yeah.
good. So you're a mentor, a trainer, a guide for healers. What advice would you give someone who's just entering this field of spiritual work?
Um, Find mentors, ethical mentors, and find mentors because we need support. We all do, and whoever each of you and each of us feel called to seek support and mentoring and collaboration, to just be sure that it feels right.
Mm.
Like if it doesn't feel right, something is off. Even if one doesn't clearly know what is off, then the invitation is to pause and then figure something out. So just, yes, to seek mentors that are ethical and they feel right. Yes.
Very good. What books do you recommend?
Thank you, Tracy. I have heard some of your podcasts, so I knew you were going to ask that question. So I wrote some
Okay.
books.
All right. Very
Come.
good. I
Yes.
can't wait.
Thank you. So one of them um, is, because it's part of the theme we're talking about, is called The Ethical Psychic by
Mm.
Jennifer Lisa Vest. And it's good. I think it's good for any practitioner. It doesn't need to be psychic. Any healer, any practitioner, I think is good. The book is also good for anybody because that way one gets us. Sometimes one doesn't know what is ethical, right? One lives in a confusing world, and we all come with different baggages and experiences. So sometimes one doesn't even know what is ethical. And
Mm.
so you might want to read that book and say like, oh yes, this makes sense, that kind of thing, right? Another book that I love is called Braiding Sweetgrass: Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And she also had podcast. You can find her interviews, I think. And that book I love because everything is interconnected on Earth, including plants, but including everything, right? And so that book talks about respectfully and caringly about reciprocity and interconnection. So I love that interconnection of all of life. Another book that I like, I thought I would give books in different areas. And another book I enjoy is called The Gift of the Body: A Multidimensional Guide to Energetic Anatomy, Grounded Spirituality, and Living Through the Heart by Jonathan Goldman, which I think is a different Jonathan Goldman than the Reiki Chants, but either way, it's a good book. And I haven't finished. I just started, so I don't know. I'm reading a book by Hiroshi Doi of the Reiki Gakkai about the history of Reiki, which I find interesting and important to learn as a
Yes.
Reiki
Yes.
practitioner
Yeah.
and teacher.
Yeah.
So
Very important to know the history, keeping the oral tradition going.
exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So, what other services or modalities do you offer? Do you offer classes, events, trainings, workshops?
Yes, thank you, Tracy, for asking and inviting me to share with everybody and all the listeners. So I teach Reiki. So before I forget to say that, I teach Reiki, but so find the teacher. If you are interested in connecting with Reiki, find the teacher that is aligned, that feels right. So um, I I offer individual sessions, and those sessions, mm, I have different backgrounds, different modalities. So the sessions I offer depend on each person. So each person always have a say of what modalities feels right for them in their lives, in their time. So um, some training multimodalities, some are there Reiki, some of them somatic experiences, some of them has to do with parts work. They combine beautifully. Um, before I forget, so I think I did, and I forgot to mention, like when this all unfoldings, and I separated my psychotherapy practice from the energy healing practice.
Mm.
It has practical reasons, and every practitioner does it differently. So that's how I'm offering in this time in my life. I don't know the future, but so the psychotherapy practice um, is its own thing. And then I have a separate practice that has energy healing with Reiki, shamanic frameworks, and some has somatic experience and interpersonal neurobiology, that kind of thing. So the session combine mind, body, heart, spirit, all those integrative pathways in however way it feels right for each person, right? I also was I also offer this, I really enjoy it. It's a sound has been right across millennia and culture um, partner with for our well-being, right? And it's very powerful. It can you're a yoga teacher. There's a lot of chant, but like in so many, you know, um, cultures, it's everywhere, right? Sound and music, and so and it's beautiful and transformative, and and so I'm training there is a particular. It's a long story in itself. So there is our autonomic nervous system has three parts, and they have to do with how we connect with each other, how we find creativity and joy, but also our defense mechanisms that sometimes can get stuck, like fight, flight, freeze, appease, those things. And so this is a particular music that actually sounds common, but is filtered to highlight some frequencies that neurobiologically connect with our social engagement system, how we connect with each other in the world. And so it helps reset our vagus nerve, which is an important part of autonomic nervous system, right? To have space for more connection with ourselves, each other, and the world. And so I offer that, and I pair it in the energy healing practice. I pair it with Reiki, and I pair it with somatic approach, depending what emerges. So that's also a beautiful offering that people enjoy. What I was going to say. Yes, but honestly, I don't know exactly when the podcast will launch, or even after this episode is in your podcast. I don't know when somebody will read it, will listen to it, right? So the invitation is we connect later to check in my offerings and see what's available at the time, because they shift. So yes, thank
and that
you.
goes into the next question. Where can we find you? How can we get in touch with you? Are you online, on person? Do you have website, social media?
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. So the best way to get a hold of myself and my offerings is my website. It's called earthskyhearthealing.com. And so in that website, you'll see my offerings. And at this moment, the offerings are online, since I have found, to my surprise, how powerful and far-reach. It can connect and help. So for my energy healing practice, that's the way you can find me, through that website. And I invite you to check in, because I don't yet have a newsletter, but maybe by the time the podcast airs, I will. And I think I'm going to offer some Reiki shares and things like that. So I don't know exactly all the unfolding. So I invite you. It's always changing as I unfold as well. So I invite you all to, if you feel called to check the website, to read more about myself and the offerings and see what resonates with you. Yes. Thank you, Tracy.
Well, Lottie, that ends the first part of our journey together, and I'm going to continue to guide you through the next part of our journey, which is 3 social media questions. So here we go. This is sent in by listeners and Reiki students. So number 1, as having a PhD in theoretical physics, how do you describe Reiki to someone who is just hearing about Reiki for the first time?
Thank you, Tracy, and the listeners who asked this question. By the way, for many years, I didn't tell people I had a PhD in theoretical physics. I hide it so people wouldn't make assumptions. But anyways.
Isn't that interesting? Because people who do Reiki would often hide it. If I had that PhD, I would be screaming it from the mountaintops.
No, I will hide the PhD in physics, and other times I will hide the Reiki, but at this point, I'm being more open with all that I am, But anyways, so this is, I hope it's not disappointing to you and the listeners of the Reiki podcast. But the first way I would share it is exactly the same way as any other Reiki teacher or practitioners I have ever met. Universal life force energy. Everything is interconnected, and spiritually guided life force energy, because for me, it does have a spiritual component to it. Mm-hmm. So honestly, that's the way I would. But for some people, that's enough. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. And if that's enough, wonderful. Some people might have other questions, right? And so if people have other questions, then I might go more in depth to maybe the physics background. And some of them, and I'll share it just in case that is helpful for the listeners as well, and how we all explain Reiki and energy to each other. So I'll summarize it. So one piece I will say is that, like, there is a Center for Reiki Research, that there is ongoing research about Reiki, right? And so I would invite people to check that out if they're curious or hesitant, and that makes all sense. Being skeptical is good. And so in those research, I would say, of the one I have seen, I haven't seen them all, and I would love to learn more, and they're ongoing. But a lot of the ones I have seen, it's actually very hard to do research. So for the ones that I have seen, they are more of the testing its effectiveness. Is it effective or is it not effective in certain circumstances, like with depression, with pain, or people healing from cancer, like things like that, right? And so the research I have seen is that there it seems to be effectiveness above of the placebo effect, right? And so, but there is some, there are limitations. Of every research has its own limitation, right? And so, but it's ongoing and it's powerful. I'm so glad that it's there, right? Now, there is not, as far as I know, much research yet, because that's harder, of the origins or the mechanism of actions of Reiki. Mm-hmm. When people ask to explain Reiki, they're actually usually asking, where does it come from? Like, how do I see it? What is this energy, right? So there is actually less research on that, because that is hard. Mm-hmm. But the piece that I will share, by the way, research in science, usually, especially experimental ones, to figure out types of energy and get information from it, they take decades. They take a lot of money. They take a large collaboration, sometimes from hundreds of people across the world, to make these big experiments to figure out different energies. They're usually not small. But anyways, what I will share is that I think a lot of people might not know is that we actually don't know a lot of our universe. Mm-hmm. So, for example, which I find beautiful, but for other people it's disconcerting, I don't know, but I find it beautiful. But so of the energy budget of the universe, the one we can see and measure, only 5% of this energy is of matter of what we know. 25%, if for an energy, like a type of matter we physicists call dark matter, it just means that it doesn't connect much with the light we see. So we just see its fingerprints type thing through gravitation. That's its own story. And 70% of the energy of the universe is something physicists have very little idea of what it is. But what we know is that it's expanding space-time itself. But we actually have no idea what it is, right? And so as a physicist, there is so much we don't know that if you ask me, but we don't know what is Reiki, I'm like, oh, wonderful. We actually don't know that much of the universe. So bring it on. It's not a problem to me. Right. The other thing I would say, and I was listening to a podcast recently, I don't remember when, and they were interviewing William Rand about the Center for Reiki Research.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about the research about Reiki. And one piece towards the end, I don't remember the exact words, right? But the person interviewing him, I think it asked him something like, is there anything that has surprised you through the research? Yes. I don't remember the exact thing. And something that he mentioned, as far as I remember, is that like some time ago, he and a collaborator went to, I think it was a lab in Stanford, and they were in that lab, there was these detectors called squid. They are very precise to measure weak electromagnetic fields. Anyways, they what the experiment show is that that detector did not show electromagnetic field. And what William said as a scientist, I'm like, right on. I think that's the way. And he's like, well, what it says to him, and I think to me as well, is that, well, it might not just be electromagnetic, it's another type of energy. And our universe have many, many types of energies. Yes. Some of them we don't understand, so Reiki is one of them. But basically, I just explain it as anybody else. Universal life force energy, spiritually guided life force energy. So I don't know if that helped or not.
Very good.
Thank you.
Number 2, of all the modalities that you have studied, which one has made the most impact on your healing journey?
Thank you for asking. That one is hard to answer because they all have had impact, and they all have they have come at a time that they had the right impact. All the modalities I have studied because I have experienced them myself. So it's hard to distinguish. But I will say, I don't think I can answer one, but I can answer 2 or 3. So at a time, somatic experiencing helped a lot with embodiment and to understand myself and each other more. And it was transformational. And Reiki and shamanic healing and other type of energy work brought a spiritual energy aspect to it that has been transformational, right? So those 2, but I wouldn't want to leave out the interpersonal neurobiology piece because that helps be with our inner world and our inner parts. So I think for me, the mind, heart, body, and spirit are one, and these different modalities, even though they all interact with all aspects of the self, sometimes for my brain, they can focus more in each aspect of the self, but they all interact with it. So it's hard. I am not good answering one thing only. Yes.
One thing. Okay, very good. And the third question, as a highly sensitive, intuitive individual, what is one piece of advice that you can offer to me as I'm working towards shifting to my more authentic self in the world?
Beautiful, beautiful question. So the first thing I will share, and this depends where each of us is in our own journey, right? So the first thing I will share is that being highly sensitive and intuitive, it is a gift. It is actually a superpower. It's just that sometimes a lot of society doesn't see it that way. So we all then, no, I don't know, most of us then, have barriers and like internalized belief that are not like aligned, with ourselves. And so it reminds me of, I wrote it somewhere, It reminds me of a quote I was going to read. Uh, it's a quote by Rumi. And it says, it's a part of a poem by Rumi, and says, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." And I think for me, it's like we are love, and it's good to connect with love. But I think for me, what I take from that is like, because we have lived in families, in societies, and generations that might not know how to honor those gifts. Mm-hmm. And there are pairs, are gifts, and like we create protections. And so the invitation is to connect with those protections that maybe we have had since childhood, and see what are those truly are serving us now, and what other possibilities one has now as an adult, right? Mm-hmm. Because we might have different possibilities. And that kind of fits a bit with the holy fire, sharing the layers of the cultural create itself. Yeah. So the same piece, right? Mm-hmm. And so how to do that, I think there are different ways at different times for different people. But, and I would also add to connect with community, and to each other. And thank you actually for this podcast to help be in community, which is part of it. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was our last question. So as we were talking, is there anything that you may have forgotten, or you have a message, or there's something that you like to share? You can take this time right now.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. Let's see. I think I'm just grateful to be here and grateful to share with you all, the listeners. And you know, I just hope that as we also work on ourselves, we like have, you know, we unwind our patterns that have come through our personal history, our ancestral generational history, and also support each other and our planet, you know, for more love and peace and ease. So I am grateful to be together and honored to be here. And if anybody have any questions, you are welcome to send me a message. Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Lottie, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be a part of this Ready, Set, Reiki journey.
Thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate you and appreciate all the listeners. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, our wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on the show, reach out at www.readysetreiki.com. Check out on social media as well. If you are interested in yoga, Reiki, or Reiki trainings, reach out to Feather Sister that offers a variety of Reiki classes and Reiki trainings and yoga online and in person in the El Paso area. So I'm Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready, Set, Reiki.